Good morning, everyone. Morning. We all awake? We all get enough coffee? Anyone get stopped by the coffee police at the door? I did. Yeah. Yeah, I know the line's a little long out there for registration, so I figure we'll have some people streaming in here. There's some seats up front. You get extra credit if you come up and sit in the front. Yeah, so welcome, everyone. Glad to be here in Richmond, Virginia for the Shed Builder Expo. My name is Brandon Schmidt. I'm the Director of Digital Strategy for YDOP. We're a digital marketing agency for the shed industry. And how many here, this is your first Shed Builder Expo? Nice. Well, welcome. You're going to have a lot of information thrown at you over the next day or day and a half. You're going to be able to meet a ton of vendors and just a real cool opportunity to really grow your business. I used to be a youth pastor, so I am going to be asking for hands a lot. I won't make you do any funny task or anything, but I will be asking for some participation. And I just wanted to initially get your thoughts on dealer networks. How many of you, raise your hand if you are a dealer, if you're a dealer of some manufacturer? Okay. How many of you are the manufacturer? All right, that's most of the people in the room. How about raise your hand if you have an existing dealer network? Okay. How many of you are looking to start a dealer network? Okay. That's good. How many of you are satisfied with your dealer network? It's a lot slower. Okay, I guess maybe that's why you're here, right? We're here to talk about dealer networks. Now, this is one of those things, I got into this industry about 7 years ago, and I, have been learning and growing, getting to know shed dealers, shed builders, the manufacturers, all the vendors and suppliers. And so I've had a chance to talk to a lot of you and just hear what's working and what's not working. And it shouldn't surprise you that the dealer network is a very important part of the shed industry. And it's not just the shed industry. A lot of industries have really invested in dealer networks. And there's been some studies and research on the importance of them and how they affect businesses. And in one case, this Forrester research looked and saw that 76% of the manufacturers that they interviewed saw the dealer relationship as key to delivering revenue goals. And when they looked further at the dealer relationships, they saw that the manufacturers that had mature dealer relationships, right? So ones that were established, that had clear guidelines and rules and all the things that we'll be talking about today, that those relationships grew company revenue twice as fast as those with either without a dealer network or a less mature dealer network. So the mere fact that you're here probably means I don't have to, convince you that a dealer network is important. But there's a lot of benefits, both for the dealers and for you as the manufacturers. Come on in, people. Come on in. Just keep spreading around. This will be standing room only. So that's you'll have to find standing room. The benefits of the dealer network, there's tons of them. I don't have to list them all off. One that I will focus on is the geographic footprint. Imagine that we're starting a shed company right here in Richmond, Virginia. We'll call it Brandon's Sheds. I don't know where that name came off of, but yeah, so we'll start with Brandon Sheds. And obviously, if I invest resources, time, energy, I'm going to be able to create a footprint here in the Richmond area. I did see one hand raised, so maybe he's my competitor, so I have to handle him first. But, I'm going to be able to, over time, be able to focus on this area. But how do I get past that area, right? It's a compounding effect. I have to actually spend a lot more marketing effort in order to grow that a little bit further. But with a dealer network, what happens is you start expanding your territory in other areas. And the benefits, from a digital marketing perspective, from a brand awareness perspective, from just getting in front of more people is going to help when you have that dealer network. Here's a physical representation of what this looks like. So this is one of our clients. They're in Pennsylvania area, and they have several locations. And this is a tool that we use in the digital marketing space to measure how someone ranks on Google. So the green is good, the red is less good. So it's a visual representation of that. You can see that, location 1, location 2, location 3, they each have their own territories which they rank fairly well in, and as you get further outside that bubble, you're not going to rank as well. And when you combine all of their locations together into a single search, this is what you see. So again, I'm putting my digital marketing hat on because I'm a digital marketer, but this is one of those physical benefits that you get from having a dealer network. Now, it's not all happiness and butterflies and roses. There are barriers, there's challenges to having a dealer network. Like I said, we work with a lot of manufacturers and dealers, so we actually hear it on both sides. And I'm sure if we had enough time, I could ask you guys to provide your feedback on what works, what doesn't work, what are the struggles and challenges to a dealer network. Oftentimes, from the manufacturer side, they see that there's less commitment, right? That there's some dealers that are doing really well and they're providing a ton of the sales, and there's some dealers that just aren't doing as much or as much as they could, right? They're in prime location, they have a lot of opportunity, but they're just not moving as many sheds, not moving as many products as they could. And from the dealer side, oftentimes the complaints that we hear are lack of communication, lack of resources. We just don't have enough information. I feel like we're the experts in the shed product that the manufacturer is just not communicating as well as they could. And so if you resonate with some of those things, if those are complaints that you've had either as the dealer, as the manufacturer, you may see that the dealer network is just not giving you as much value as it should, or it's not being leveraged in the best way. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today is just some of those ways that you can grow your dealer network, that you can, as a manufacturer, that you can provide a ton more value, a ton more resources, a ton more for your dealers. And for any dealers that are in the room, how do you identify a good manufacturer that will help you grow your business? Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to sell more products. We're trying to grow businesses. That's one of the things that I love about being in digital marketing and helping, builders and dealers like you guys, is being able to have tangible impact on lives, right? Seeing businesses grow, seeing them be able to expand, hire more people, have a better way of life. Those are really tangible things that you guys are doing on a daily basis. And so if your dealer network can help you grow and do those things, then it's a win-win for everyone. So a lot of the tips that we'll be sharing are things that we've come across honestly in other industries. So like I said, we work in the shed and outdoor living industry, but we work in a few other industries. And we've taken best practices from the dealer networks and partnerships that happen in those industries, and we've learned what works, and we've been able to apply them here in the shed industry. So some of these tips may be ones that or you intuitively think, oh, that makes sense. Some of these might be counterintuitive. They might be things that you've never tried before, or things that you've never even heard of before, because they're kind of new in the industry. And that's okay, right? Ultimately, with all this, you take it with a grain of salt, you test it out, and you try and see if it works. But what we've done is we've looked at all those other industries, and the phrase I like to use is cross-pollination, right? We take what works best in another industry and we apply it here. And a lot of that is contained in what we call the game plan, right? The game plan for a successful dealer network. Again, because of the time, and I know at like 8:45, 8:50, there's going to be a whole group of other people that are going to be coming in for the 9 o'clock session. So we are kind of limited by time in this session. So all we're doing is just providing a few tips, but most of it is contained in this game plan. And at the end of this session, I'll tell you how you can get your game plan for a successful dealer network. The very first thing I want to talk about is to establish rules and guidelines for your dealers. You probably have some sort of agreement. It may be a legal document, or it may just be something that they signed, but you probably have some sort of arrangement with your dealers. Here's how many, products you're going to buy for, your sales lot. Here's, a financial commitment. Here's, your territory. You kind of have some sort of guidelines, whether they're official or unofficial. You have some of those best practices. What I'm recommending is that you really tighten those up and perhaps even elevate or expand on those rules and guidelines for dealers. The one example I'll give is Ford. So Ford, for the last 100 years, has been selling their vehicles through a dealer network. And just last week, just as I was preparing this talk, this article came out September 14th. They announced that they are revamping their dealer network. Their existing dealers can stay dealers, and that's fine with the current agreements and rules and regulations. But if any dealer wants to become an electronic vehicle dealer, they have to do a lot more. There's a lot of rules and regulations about what they need to do in order to qualify and become an EV certified dealer. It involves specialized training. They have to have transparent pricing on their website. They have to allow for remote delivery, and they have to invest in fast chargers on their property. And if they don't make this investment, again, they can stay a Ford dealer, but they're not going to be able to sell electronic vehicles. And so this is creating some waves in a good way and a bad way, of course. Dealers are a little hesitant to make this type of investment, but they also see the benefit of staying in good graces with Ford. And I'm not saying that you kind of say, hey, you got to do this or else. But what are some of those guidelines? What are some of those rules that you can put in place in order to have a good manufacturer-dealer relationship? Ultimately, your goal is not to be controlling or try to force them to do anything, but you have your brand to protect, right? If you have a logo, if you have a name, if you have, collateral, if you have, your products, your imagery, all those things are things that you want to protect, that you want to be able to have a say in how it shows up in marketing or how it doesn't show up. Again, some of these things that are on the screen are perhaps things that you already have in place, but you may not have it as formalized as it should be. And so those may be some of the things that you need to take a look at. One of the things that's really helpful is if you don't have some of these in place, think about some of your best dealers, right? If you've heard of the Pareto principle, you typically have 80% of anything coming from 20% of something. So in this case, it would be 80% of revenue may only come from 20% of your dealer network, right? It's those outliers, those either bigger dealers or the dealers that are just punching above their weight, where they are, maybe a smaller shop, but they are really selling a lot more product than the rest of your dealer network. Start looking at them and seeing what are they doing well, what are they not doing well, and maybe you can base some of your guidelines and rules off of those. When we look at those higher performing dealers, it makes me think of the second tip that I would recommend, which is to introduce dealer tiers. You may already have something like this in place. Even if it's not official, you may have something in place where you say, okay, these are our A-level dealers, and these are the dealers that are just not pulling their weight. They're just not doing as much as they could. And this, again, is something that we pull from a few other industries. Big Green Egg has a very formal and very clear, articulated version of their dealer network. You are a platinum dealer, a gold dealer, silver, or bronze dealer. Now, in this case, a lot of what changes between the different levels is your commitment, right? You need to have a certain amount of products on your site. You need to be able to sell accessories and some of the additional features, and that determines which level you show up on. And it's front and center on their website as well. So when you go to Big Green Egg and you do a search for a Big Green Egg dealer in your area, again, in this case, Richmond, it's going to draw attention. If you look on the left-hand side of the screen, it shows the platinum level dealers first, and then the gold level dealers, and then on and on. And that may be even though the platinum dealers are not as close as some of those other dealers. And so you're actually communicating, the manufacturer is communicating to the general public, hey, we recommend the platinum dealers more than the other ones. And so it may actually ask you to drive past one or two other dealers in order to get to the platinum level dealer. We also see this in the building trade. So Trex is a manufacturer of decking, and they have it front and center that we recommend these types of builders, right? These are builders that have gone through specific training, that they have, they're certified, they're vetted, they've gone through their licensing and insurance. Another thing they don't say on the website, but it's really important, is these levels are determined by how much you actually buy, right? So the platinum level Trex Pros are going to be selling a lot more Trex supplies than someone on the gold or the regular level. So what this looks like in the real world, especially in your case, is that you may have a few tiers, right? You've got the top level tier. These are your premium, your premier, your top level dealers. They're the ones that are selling the most, and they have the biggest opportunity to get in front of people. One thing that this may also influence is it may influence the resources that you provide to them. You may provide, better pricing. You may provide better deals for them. You may provide them with a larger territory, right? So if you divvy up your area into sales territories, you may give them a larger territory based on that. And then level 2 and level 3 are just people that just aren't selling as much, or they don't have as many resources, or they haven't made as much of a commitment to your program. One thing when we look at these tiers is this is your greatest opportunity for growth. Instead of looking outward and trying to find new dealers, what can you do to increase the sales of your level 1 dealers and try to get them to sell more so that they go to level 2, or for level 2 dealers to increase and go up to level 3? So when you look at how to grow your business, if you've got big business growth goals and you say, hey, we want to increase sales by X, this is the first place that you look. How do we support, how do we encourage and nurture our existing dealers so that they can sell more, right? So that they can expand their territory and sell more in their markets. And of course, there's a lot of different ways that you can highlight that and support them. Here's one example. Give them badges, give them something on their website or something in person for their store, some signage, in order to make that clear that they are a premier or a platinum level, whatever language you choose. That is one of the ways that you can do it. One of the things I mentioned in this screen, come on in, guys. There's standing room over here if you want to come on in. We're just going over just some of the tips and tricks and ideas for growing your dealer network. And one of the things I mentioned on this slide is a commitment. Now, this is sometimes one of the more controversial things that we say during these types of talks, but you need to be asking for a yearly investment. Some of you may have you ask for some sort of money, and that may be, hey, you have to buy the inventory, you have to buy the sales material, you have to make some sort of investment that way. But there's a lot of dealer networks in other industries that require a yearly investment. Now, you might be sitting here and saying, Brandon, how can I charge for something? How are they going to pay for something that they're getting for free? Or how can I justify charging for something? I don't think it's valuable enough. Again, going back to our example of 4 dealerships, the estimated investment that a dealer is going to have to make in order to get to sell electronic vehicles, again, they have to make this investment in the next 2 years, is going to be $500,000. And if you want to jump to that next tier, you're going to have to go to $1.2 million. I'm not saying that's how much you charge, right? Again, they're selling a ton more product at a much higher price point, so I'm not saying that's any type of level of charging for the shed industry. But what we are saying is that it's a commitment, right? It's a commitment that the dealers have to make in order to continue to have that relationship. So the question of how can I justify charging for a dealer network? Number one, there's a psychological benefit to having something that's not free, right? If you get something that's free, you value it less. If you're making an investment, you're gonna value it a little bit more, right? Now, again, it has to tie in with benefits. So you can't just charge for something and not provide different benefits. So you do need to think about that, and that's what the rest of these points are gonna be about, is about how to provide that value so that it's a no-brainer for someone to do. Another thing this is really helpful for is this provides you support so that you can use it to invest in these things, which co-op marketing we'll talk about in 1 minute. I would be a bad digital marketer if I didn't talk about how a dealer plan, a dealer network can help your dealers show up on Google. So we have to mention that. Any dealer network is going to have value in growing your dealer network on Google. Let's be honest, most of your dealer websites are horrible. If they even have a website, right? If they even have a website, if they don't have a website, it's non-existent. They may not show up on Google. If they do have a website, it's gonna be something like this. Because ultimately your dealers, for the most part, are not just shed dealers, right? In this case, they are a furniture manufacturer, and they have one mention of the sheds, and it is here in the resources tab. If this was a live website, I could hover over it and it would show, and it would just be a link to the manufacturer. That's it. Is that gonna rank on Google? No. You're not providing the right resources, so that and the website's not set up so it ranks for Google. And let's be honest, like a lot of your dealers are gonna have those other business lines. They're gonna sell furniture, indoor furniture, outdoor furniture. They might be a general store. They might be a home improvement store. Even if they just do outdoor structures, well, which one are they gonna focus on, right? Which one is their website gonna focus on? It's gonna focus on the pergolas, the pavilions, the cabins, the metal carports, right? There's gonna be, the website's gonna be divided into a few different topics. And so that's not gonna send the best signal to Google on that they are a shed builder or shed dealer in that area. So what you can do as a manufacturer is you can use your website in order to highlight them and help them grow. And so we call this, probably the biggest way to do that is through a dealer locator page. There's a few different ways that you can build this, and I'll explain each one in a second. The first one is a dealer locator by zip code. This is probably the most helpful for a user. You go in, you enter in your zip code, and it pops up with, here's the dealer. Most of the time, this is done because people have territories, right? They have, you assign zip codes to your dealers and you say, okay, you get these 10 zip codes, you get these 5 zip codes, right? Or you might say, hey, 50-mile radius around your location, that's your dedicated area. And so you set up all the zip codes in a finder like this, and whenever one of those zip codes is entered, it shows up on there. And then by default, if no territory, if someone enters a zip code that no one serves, then typically it's the manufacturer that shows up there. Again, this is really helpful for users. It's not as good for Google. Okay, it's not as good for Google because this is kind of hiding the information. Typically, those listings are not indexable, so Google doesn't see them. So it's not going to help you rank as well on Google. Again, it's good for users, but it's not as good for Google. And one of the reasons why this may be done intentionally is to hide your dealer list from the competition. Okay. Again, we've talked to manufacturers in the past, and they don't want their dealer list to get into the hands of their competition because you're afraid someone's going to poach them or offer them better pricing or anything like that. Let me tell you this: if your competition is working with someone like me, we already know your dealer list, right? We can find it. If you don't put it on your website, it makes it a little bit harder, but not much harder, okay? So we have a list of your dealers. It's just a matter of if you wanna make it a little harder for them to get it. So don't do this just because you wanna hide your list from your competition. Again, this is good for user experience, but it's not good for Google. There's a few other ways you can do it that are helpful for the user and for Google. This is one case where you have a dealer locator by just a list, right? You do need to have a hierarchy. You need to have a system in place where you can see, okay, it's broken down based on state or by region. You do want to have information about, like, here's the company name, but also here's the location. In some cases, you may have a dealer who has multiple locations. You need to be able to highlight those things. There's a lot that you need to a lot that goes into kind of creating a page like this. And there's really easy ways to mess this up. This type of system is really good until you get to about 50 to 75 locations. Once you get to about 50 or 75 locations, this can break down and you need to add an additional layer or you need to rethink how this gets listed. But this is probably good for, I'd say, 5 dealers up to 50 to 75. Another thing that you can do is have a map. This is really good for the user. It, again, isn't always as good for Google if you set it up wrong. If you set it up wrong, this Google can get really confused and not really like it. But this is really helpful for users because, again, you can enter in your address or you can just zoom in and you can find the nearest location. So those are a few ways that you can highlight the dealers on your website. And always, almost always, I am recommending that you have individual pages for each of your dealers. Okay, having an individual page for each of your dealers is going to allow you to rank for the dealers in those areas and provide that information. It's really good if they don't have a website because this becomes the de facto website for them. And you don't have to have a ton of information, right? At the bare minimum would be address, hours, phone number. You can have a list of the products that they sell. If maybe they don't sell all of the products in your line, having links out to your product pages. There's a lot you can do on these pages. If they don't have a website, this will rank number one for it, or it should rank number one for it. Even if they do have a website, that example I gave you of that furniture store, this is an example where their website ranks number one when you do a search for them. Number two is going to be their Facebook page, and number three is the manufacturer's website. So again, with just a little bit of effort, creating those pages, you're able to leverage your brand as the manufacturer, leverage your website in order to help your dealers out. And the website isn't the only thing that you can do to improve them. There's a ton of digital resources. If they do their own marketing, if they have their own social media profiles, if they have their own website, provide them with the resources so that they can succeed. Don't make them reinvent the wheel or reinvent content or try to create stuff on their own. Provide those things so that they can grow their profile and grow their business online. When we talk about giving them the right tools, it doesn't just mean digital tools. There's a ton of training and opportunities and resources that you can provide. And this is one thing I will say that for the most part, this industry is pretty good at. I speak at a lot of dealer days and dealer events. And if you ever run one, I'd love to speak at it, mainly because I love the food, right? You guys make some great food, and I love eating at them. But yeah, a few times a year, we speak at dealer events in Lancaster County and in the region, and it's a great thing, right? If you don't know what it is, basically, a manufacturer will bring all of their dealers in for a day to a weekend of events, training. This is a really good time to provide insights on here's what's coming up. Here's our new product line. Here's what we're changing. Here's the colors that we're phasing in, the colors we're phasing out. You provide training, someone like me who comes and talks about business development or how to market online. And so it's a really good time, not just for training and education, but also for socializing, also for fostering that community or for creating that feedback loop. I was at one event, probably in the middle of COVID, where this is the time where all the prices were just going skyrocketing. This was a barbecue manufacturer, right? And he was expressing the challenges of, hey, when steel is at this type of price, honestly, I don't know what price I'm going to pay for the steel until the truck shows up. So he was expressing his challenges of providing accurate pricing to the dealers, right? And he was talking about, hey, we might have to do another price increase, right? Or we might have to do a surcharge, right? So they were talking about some of those challenges and what they might have to do. And I found this really encouraging because this was also a chance for the dealers to provide feedback and say, here's what our customers are thinking. Here's some customers get it, right? Everything else is going up in price. So, price of steel is going to go up. Obviously, that's going to affect this. But they were also providing feedback on what the manufacturer could do, right? Here's what you could do better on your website in order to highlight the pricing change. Or here's the information that we need from you in order to, pass this information along to the end user. And so that was a really good opportunity to see when a dealer-manufacturer relationship works well, right? It was an opportunity to see how that communication needs to be two-way, and it's a way for the dealer to provide feedback to the manufacturer and for the manufacturer to provide guidance, and also learn what to say and what not to say to them. So yes, as a manufacturer, there's a lot of resources that you need to provide to your dealers. Everything up here is table stakes, honestly. All of this is stuff that any manufacturer needs to provide. So you can write down, you can take a picture, but this is the easiest thing to do, okay? This is not the thing that's gonna move the needle though, okay? What's gonna move the needle is the things that you do beyond this. What can you do as a manufacturer that's beyond these things? What are those next level resources that you can do? Because honestly, what's gonna happen is any of the dealers are gonna be looking at you, and they're gonna look at the 5, 8, 10 other manufacturers that they're working with, right? The cabin manufacturer, the metal carport manufacturer, the outdoor living products, the furniture product, right? They're gonna look at all of them and say, well, who's providing me the best value? Who's providing me the best service? And they're gonna base their allegiance, base their loyalty, base perhaps what they focus on in terms of sales, based on some of these relationships. So what are those next level things that you can do? What are those things that no other manufacturer is doing? And I gave a few examples, but I can't answer that for you because it needs to fit within your culture, right? Maybe it means you're providing high-end photography, right? It's not just a shed that's in your parking lot or on their facility, that you're actually flying out or you're paying for a photographer to go into a customer's backyard once it's all landscaped and all finished and you're getting those photographs and you're covering that. Perhaps it's coaching. Maybe you go to each dealer every 6 months, every quarter, and you're sitting with them, you're talking to them, you're watching them interact with customers, you're talking to their sales staff, you're walking through their sales lot and say, here's what you could do better, here's where we can improve, right? You're providing that type of feedback. You're providing a support community where all of your dealers can communicate together. Maybe it's at those events, or maybe it's an online component or something where you're helping foster that community so that they can get ideas and bounce ideas off of one another. Oftentimes, networks provide free or heavily discounted software. We work a lot in the HVAC space, and there are some people that join dealer networks solely for the software that's provided, because otherwise they would not be able to afford the software that they get, right? These are CRM softwares, these are communication or marketing softwares, these are softwares that run their business, and they join these networks in order to get that software and be able to use it to help their business grow. And then another thing, which we'll talk about in 2 seconds, is co-op marketing. Co-op marketing or co-op funding. That is a next level thing that you can provide to your dealers. Co-op marketing is something that we hear about every once in a while in the shed industry, but most of the time it honestly hasn't reached much in the shed industry or outdoor living industry, but it's prevalent in a lot of other industries. My guess is that any ad you've ever seen for appliances is some sort of co-op marketing, okay? And it happens on billboards, it happens on digital ads, it happens in the newspaper. Any ad that you've seen for appliances is some sort of co-op marketing. Essentially what it is the dealers or the local company is paying for advertising. It might be on social media, it might be, again, billboards or in print, but they're paying for those ads. And then the manufacturer reimburses them for some of those ads. Now, it needs to meet certain criteria, right? There's certain guidelines and rules and regulations that happen, but you can, for the dealer, it's a real win because they were already going to be running those ads, but now they get up to 50% back for that. And for the manufacturer, the real benefit is expanding your footprint. Again, if we get back to Brandon Sheds, this hypothetical shed company here in Richmond, Virginia, if I have a budget of $1,000 for marketing, right? Not realistic, but if I had $1,000 for marketing, I might be able to reach a certain area. Again, not realistic. $1,000 is not going to help you reach all of this area. But say I have that. If I want to get more out of my marketing, what I might do is I might actually cut that marketing budget down a little bit, kind of close in my territory a little bit, and then pass along the revenue to my other dealers. Okay, so it's supporting the marketing that they're already doing, but there's a lot of other benefits, is that you get to control some of the messaging, you get to have a say in that, you get to build brand awareness, and you get to have a bigger impact in a larger geographic area. Now, there are certain things you need to do. You need to establish brand guidelines. You need to say, here's what qualifies, here's what doesn't qualify for co-op marketing. So you need to be pretty specific on that. And then you need to create a system so that they can submit the invoices for getting reimbursement for the co-op marketing. So, and again, we've worked with this a lot in the past in other industries. Honestly, it's pretty simple, right? These are two HVAC one's, I guess both are HVAC companies. These postcards qualified for co-op marketing. All they need to do is make sure those logos are on there, all right? That's from the dealer side, that was a no-brainer, right? If I put this logo on there and I send it out and I submit my receipts, I will get 50% back, or whatever the price breakdown is. And again, from the manufacturer, the benefit is you're getting your logo in front of a lot more people, or you're getting your brand, or you're helping your dealer get their brand out in front of a lot more people. And it doesn't just have to be postcards. This is an example from a paint store that we work with, and they get qualified for digital ads, for Facebook ads, and for Google ads. And in some cases, they don't even need to mention the brand. Now, all this is great if you have a dealer that is doing marketing and they're proactive and they're actually going out and doing these things on their own. What happens for the 80% of your other dealers that may not be doing marketing? They may not be as savvy in doing marketing online, or honestly, they're just not big enough, right? The dealer is also the owner, they're the salesperson, they're HR, they wear 100 hats, and adding this on may just be too much of a burden for them. And so the final tip that we have is to consider a dealer marketing system. What are the ways that you can create a system so that you can market on behalf of your dealers? Okay, and this can vary in a few different ways, but ultimately what it looks like is that you are marketing on behalf of your dealers, right? That you cover their territory with Google ads, with billboards, with mailers, any of those things. You're actually marketing on their behalf. Some of the benefits is that you are going to be able to find out what works and then spread it across your territory, right? Instead of having 10 dealers running 10 different types of ads and each one is either working or not working, you can do the testing, you can find out what works, and then you can run your ads across the entire network. You get a lot more consistency. Instead of having to check ads and make sure that things are working or not working, you can have a consistent messaging, a consistent imagery, consistent all those things across the board. And you can help support those dealers that may be in a great territory. They just don't have the time or the staffing in order to run those ads or to do the marketing on their own. There's a lot that you can do with this type of marketing, as low as running their social account, managing their Google business. You can provide data and analytics to them. There's a lot you can do, and that could vary in a few different ways. But ultimately, the goal is you have a dealer that's in a prime territory. They just don't have the resources or the time to run the ads or to do the marketing themselves, and so you handle it on your own. So I know this has been a bit of a whirlwind through all of it, and it's just been tips. You may want to go a little deeper into some of these things, and that's where, again, we've created the game plan, right? The game plan for a successful dealer program. We are at booth 10 in the hall, the exhibit hall, and we'd love to talk to you about if you are looking to create a dealer program, or you already have an existing one, you want to expand that. We'd love to talk to you about that and get you a free copy of this while supplies last. We only printed out a few of them, so if you do want to talk to us, be sure to meet us over there. I'd love to open it up for questions, but I also know that we're going to be kicked out in a few minutes so that someone else can be presenting in here at 9. So I will be up here if you do have any questions, and once we get kicked out, we'll go into the hallway out there. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great show. Be sure to see all the vendors, and I would love to talk to you if you have any questions. Thank you.